Hello, welcome back to Facts Fiveum, everybody. And today, we're gonna get into tangent number 2 by Dave Sim. Now, if you happen to be listening to this one first, please don't. I think that the tangents are best experienced in order. However, I'm not your boss, so if you are listening and have no clue what you're doing, then, I don't know, just keep listening, I guess. Yeah, in this video, I'm just going to be having a bit more fun with it because, well, Dave Sim is inadvertently one of the funniest authors to live. He has a very good grasp of the English language, and I'm not even being facetious or anything. He really understands the English language. He's got great vocabulary, and it makes his drivel that much more fun to read. Now, without further ado, let's get in. Oh yeah, I've got a Ko-fi now. Ko-fi? That thing where you can just donate money to people. May as well. Give me money. Or don't. I'm not your boss. But if you do, it'll make me feel good, and it might make you feel good too. In the second of my 5 tangents, I'd like to address what I see as the misapprehensions of those strangest of political bedfellows, the feminist homosexualist axis. I think it was a combination of emotional empathy for societal underdogs and short-sighted technical blundering on the part of the feminists, which impelled them to champion the cause of the homosexualists in tandem with their own. I think that the homosexualists figure as any thoroughly marginalized socio-political wallflower would have. Just say yes to anyone who can get us out on the dance floor, girls. It was scarcely a match made in heaven. The two constituencies were, at least, well met, with a shared unwillingness to perceive any reality larger than their own anecdotal prejudices. And just a reminder, literally, like last tangent, the dude was talking about how, I just spoke with a bunch of women, that's all I need to do. And then now he's angry at the feminists, homosexualists, for being anecdotal. Okay. A shared willingness to perceive any reality larger than their own anecdotal prejudices, a shared tendency to deify emotions and feelings as the totems most central to their respective tribal groupings, and a preternatural. When I first read this, I don't even know what word I thought that was. Preternatural. Preternatural. One second. Okay, so it is from Merriam-Webster's dictionary: existing outside of nature, exceeding what is natural or regular, such as extraordinary, or inexplicable by ordinary means. Preternatural. Am I even
Preternatural.
Preternatural. Now that's a nice word. I'm going to take that word for later. Thank you for introducing me to a new word. Okay. The totems most central to their respective tribal groupings, and a preternatural ability to simply ignore any view or opinion which did not reinforce those prejudices and which did not kowtow to those totems. I'll be honest, kowtow to those totems, that is a great phrasing right there. I mean, man, I wish I could be half as funny. But at the same time, kowtow to those totems, that's not even, in any other context, that would be just a really neat choice of words and, a legitimately interesting one. But in this case, oh God, okay, time to continue. A certain amount of blame for the unholy feminist homosexualist axis, my gut instinct informs me. Is he being sarcastic? Because literally in the previous paragraph, he talks about how, the feminist homosexualists will deify emotions and feelings, and now he's just talking about his gut instinct. Alright, so, a certain amount of blame for the unholy feminist homosexualist axis, my gut instinct informs me, fairly attaches itself to Gore Vidal. Gore Vidal and his, as I discussed earlier, pioneering view that everyone is bisexual by nature, and that what is perceived to be quote-unquote homosexuality or quote-unquote heterosexuality are the quote luck of the draw, end quote, results of what behaviorists, good voodoo professionalists all, define as imprinting. That is, now promise you won't laugh. No guarantees. That is, that the natural instinct which impels a newly hatched duckling to identify the first large moving shape it sees as mother is the same instinct which leads us to our initial sexual experiences and thus leads us to believe that we are homosexualists or heterosexualists. There, but for the grace of Barbie Benton's 1969 Playboy pictorial, go I, as it were. I don't know who Barbie Benton is. Oh. Now, whether this notion of interchangeability as norm originated with the homosexualists, the feminists, or, as I say, Gore Vidal, it found in the 1960s and 70s nutrient-rich soil on which to further itself as a large societal misapprehension. But whereas Mr. Vidal, I believe, fashioned said notion as a means of tactical seduction, pretty weak-minded young men found fence-sitting could be persuaded in contradiction of their own best and most natural masculine instincts that it is more natural to swing both ways. Just this once being, I would suppose, rather more than adequately suited to Mr. Vidal's presumably eclectic purposes. I believe that the interchangeability underpinning was appropriated by the ladies for doings that were to prove a good deal darker in the long term. That is, it was appropriated for the advancement of the idiosyncratic feminist view that the genders are interchangeable, and that all distinctions between male and female are imposed by an evil patriarchal society, which must be overthrown. It's clear that this guy has never run into TERFs. Actually, you know what? He's insane enough it is. Let's hope he never runs into TERFs. I think that they will push him even further into insanity, and not even in a funny way. Of course, like any counter-conspiracy of such magnitude, once you get started, there is always something else that needs doing. You begin with the subversion of the language, the eradication of gender-specific nouns, and one thing just leads to another. You know, like, okay, wait. This is English. English has very few gender-specific nouns. Like, okay, yeah, we got a handful. Heck, even one of the silly ones is that, technically speaking, if you describe a male character having blonde hair, you spell it B-L-O-N-D, and if it's a female character, it's B-L-O-N-D-E. So, you know, we've got aviator and aviatrix, we got prince and princess, actor, actress, but, yeah, English just doesn't really have very many nouns that are gender-specific. Unless he's implying that English used to have gender-specific nouns, a lot more of them, and there's a feminist homosexualist conspiracy to get rid of them. That'd be kind of funny. Okay. Counter-indoctrination, the feminist communist-style program of re-education brainwashing must needs assert itself in the very earliest collectivist environments. Kindergarten is too late if the workers' feminist paradise on earth is to be achieved in our lifetime. The feminists began to ramp up nursery school, pre-nursery school, and pre-pre-nursery school. Oh, God. What are you going to do? Like, so wait, you go into kindergarten at like 5, okay, so nursery school would be 4, okay, pre-nursery school would be 3, pre-nursery school would be 2. Wonder what do you teach a kid at 2? I mean, I know that kids will pick up languages and such, it's best to, like, you know, immerse them in languages at ages 0 to 5, but like, what are you going to teach a kid at age 2 that could barely talk? Oh, God. Okay. The entertainment field and the arts community need to be co-opted. Designers of androgynous fashions pressed into service. I have to wonder, like, what... Did this guy just see a woman in a pantsuit or something and just flip out? Like, designers of androgynous fashions pressed into service. I mean, or heck, honestly, maybe it's just people are lazy. I mean, I'll wear pretty much whatever when I'm around the house. Okay. Long accustomed to blaming the patriarchal boogeyman for imposing near anorexic, near skeletal standards of quote-unquote beauty and fashion upon their naturally curvaceous selves, I think the ladies could more fairly indict their own unholy alliance with the homosexualists and the, all exceptions duly noted, predominantly gay fashion designers. Said gay fashion designers, in their turn, are more than entitled to use the Nuremberg defense that they were just following orders in developing and sustaining an androgynous look along the pirated the pirated Vidalian political line. If we are all bisexualists by nature, then presumably whatever look arouses gay fashion designers and pretty young males should, all bisexual realities being equal, could be the same quote-unquote look which arouses men when they look at pretty young women. I'm not even bisexual, and I can tell that this is just not what bisexuality is all about. I'm a bland ass straight motherfucker, and even I know that this is not all that bisexuality is about, man. Like, I'm straight, and you know what? That like doesn't mean I want to physically fuck every woman who gets within 10 feet of me. Like, I'm just a dude. Okay. Mm-hmm. Such is not the case if the men I know are anything to go by. But there is a certain guilty pleasure to be derived in watching women starving themselves to death in the name of their own misbegotten absolutist ideology. What? I'll be honest, I don't think a fashion model would be starving themselves to death for their ideology as much as they'd be doing it for money. I mean, maybe money is their ideology, but that's a different topic. If the early push to equip all men with purses was a failure, men wear purses in Europe, one feminist interjected, a hint of desperation in her tone when I mentioned the subject socially. Still, virtually all of us in my generation, men and women, were and are wearing jeans of one description or another. Such major victories, however, are pyrrhic ashes in the mouth of those for whom ideology is absolute. If gender interchangeability is the hypothesis, then there could be no rest until all societal fashions resemble those of the various Star Trek pajamas as streetwear incarnations. Interchangeability must be total. You know, I'll wear pajamas if I don't have anything else to do and I just don't feel like doing much else, but man, I'm not wearing that shit for ideology. I'm wearing that shit because I'm fucking lazy. Like, everything's a goddamn conspiracy to this nut. One of the earliest bastions to fall, and which is still in the hands of the People's Revolutionary Guard. Okay. One of the earliest bastions to fall, and which is still in the hands of the People's Revolutionary Government of Gender Interchangeability, was Academy. I believe that Gore Vidal alluded to the Concord. This guy just really has a hate boner for Gore Vidal. Like, I know he's dead. I know who he is. He's like, you know, kind of a bisexual historical fiction author, but like, let's be real here. Does anyone under, like, 40 really know that much about him or care? I mean, not to, you know, insult anyone who likes Gore Vidal or insult Gore Vidal's memory, but, like, this guy's just giving Gore Vidal so much credit for the strangest things. Okay. I believe that Gore Vidal alluded to the conquest, however obliquely, in the closing paragraphs of his essay, Edmund Wilson. This critic and this gin and these shoes. Quote, but Wilson was quite aware that things in themselves are not enough. Professor Edel quotes from Wilson's Princeton lecture, No matter how thoroughly and searchingly we may have scrutinized works of literature from the historical and biographical point of view, we must be able to tell the good from the bad, the first rate from the second rate. We shall not otherwise write literary criticism at all. We do not, of course, write literary criticism at all now. Academia has won the battle in which Wilson fought so fiercely on the other side. Ambitious English teachers now invent systems that have nothing to do with literature or life, but everything to do with those games that must be played in order for them to rise in the academic bureaucracy. Their works are empty indeed, but then their works are not meant to be full. They are to be taught, not read. The long dialogue is broken down. Fortunately, as Flaubert pointed out, the worst thing about the present is the future. One day there will be no... It just kind of ends here. But I've been asked not to give the game away. Meanwhile, I shall drop a single hint. Only construct! Emphasis mine. Okay, so wait a second. It's an essay that... I really don't know what the full context of this essay is about, but just even reading the 1.5 paragraphs he puts here, the implication is that Gore Vidal, or at least the character who Vidal is writing as, is complaining about how teachers are more fixated on working their way up the educational bureaucratic ladder than actually teaching. So Gore Vidal is complaining about something, not really alluding to any sort of conquest. Oh God. Dave Sim's head is it's like his skull is so thick that you could build tank armor out of it. Okay. Reading between the lines, I think, in one sense or another, after they had misappropriated his interchangeability thesis, representative of the mad little band of checkers playing Ivy League tacticianettes, the type, perhaps best exemplified by Hilary Rodham Antoinette. There she is, It's not really a true conspiratorial screed unless Hillary Clinton is brought up. I mean, yes, she's Hilary Rodham Antoinette, but come on, everyone knows who he's referring to. I mean, Hillary Clinton, here you are. Honestly, I kind of feel bad for the lady. Imagine imagine doing all that cutthroat political stuff, and then just people start accusing you of drinking children's blood and that sort of thing. It's not even I'm not going to vote for you because I don't trust you. It's no, you're drinking children's blood. And it's there are so many things that you can pin on her. You pick the dumbest fucking thing that makes no goddamn sense. Ay, fucking vey. Okay. So, the type that perhaps exemplified by Hilary Rodham Antoinette took it upon themselves to somewhat gleefully, I'm sure, keep Mr. Vidal abreast of their progress in getting everything all mixed up along what they perceived in their own addle-panted female way to be the lines of his own ideology of interchangeability. I remember earlier when I asked about women in pantsuits, looking at his reference of Hillary Clinton, he might have actually seen Hillary Clinton in a pantsuit and just thrown a fit. I can legitimately just imagine him seeing Hillary Clinton on TV in a pantsuit and just be like, women are not supposed to wear that. This is a plot by the bisexualist homosexualist axis to destroy society. Also, the implication here is that Hillary Clinton is a bisexual icon. Any bisexual listeners, do you see Hillary as a bisexual icon? Let me know. Let Mr. David Sim know. Okay. What heady days those must have been. Nothing but patriarchal gravestones as far as the eye could see, as easily tipped over as a sleeping cow. No feminist track record to defend. It tastes good. Other women are doing it. Who cares? A woman's right to choose. A woman's right to choose. A woman's right to choose. Only construct. Sincere advice or sabotage through reverse psychology? I mean, it's both. So meticulous a student of human history, so scrupulous a scholar of historical times and tides as Gore Vidal would recognize that. If the feminist inversion of society was to have the merest chance of success, it would need to be grafted onto the existing body politic and nurtured in tandem with it. With a great deal of care and a little bit of luck, a lot of luck, the new growth would prove more suited to its environment than that which it was seeking to replace, and the old growth would expire of its own obsolescent, by contrast, nature and accord. There are any number of examples of this in the supplanting of one form of civilization by a successor civilization. Of course, it was probably a matter of months rather than years after Vidal's sage advice to only construct that feminism hobbled itself and its chance of success with a severe outbreak of deconstructionalism, the political equivalent of Oh God, I'm sorry, but I have to say, I'm sorry for saying this. Okay. The political equivalent of a raging yeast infection that, left unchecked, shows every sign of becoming a terminal cancer. Attempts at remission by defining deconstructionism as politically correct only awaken the intelligentsia to the disturbing parallels between feminism and communism, the shared jargon, the willful disinclination to shape and reshape, an hypothesis? It says an hypothesis. Maybe it's an hypothesis? Alright. Out of the best available evidence, but to always, perversely, manufacture and pick and choose, evidently purely on the basis of its ability to support a given hypothesis, the underlying motive, as an example, compelling women to starve themselves to death rather than accept the fact that their body type is different from that of their homosexualist quote-unquote allies. Honestly, I've heard a lot of conspiracy theories, but in my day, and I still hear a lot of them today. I guess I've also heard them in my night. This is America. You hear them all over the place. But, like, honestly, the idea that, that skinny, extremely skinny women as models is somehow a gay or bisexual conspiracy, that's new. Honestly, I really wonder if David Sim is thankful to Sir Mix-a-Lot for trying to break that stereotype. Oh, God. I say, I'm tired of magazines saying flat butts are the thing. Take the average black man and ask him that. She gotta pack much back. Did Vidal count on the fact that women can always be relied upon to do the opposite of what they are advised to do by a man? Was his own horror at the prospect of the Hillary Rodham one second, please. Okay, so let's see from Wikipedia. The House of Plantagenet was a royal house which originated from the lands of Anjou in France. The family held the English throne from 1154 to 1485. Okay, I'm really not sure what he's going for with this. Like, at least with, like with Marie Antoinette that he referenced earlier, at least, Antoinette was a powerful figure who was brought low by the masses of the revolution. I'm really not sure what he's going for by referencing the Plantagenet family. Alright, so just going for something. Was his own horror at the prospect of the Hillary Rodham Plantagenets of this world actually taking control of the underlying motive in his giving them such an invaluable, irrefutable, best course of action to still down to 2 words and an exclamation point, knowing that they would ignore him and thus undo their own totalitarian ambitions through their own fundamental contrarianness? I wonder. Oh, God. Maybe it's... Oh, he put the question mark outside the quotations. Oh, God. It's just... I mean, you know what? No. I'm going to talk to all the fucking QAnon people, alright? Hillary Clinton, she is not the puppet mistress, alright? It is fucking Gore Vidal. Gore Vidal is still alive. He is trying to push a feminist, homosexualist, totalitarian conspiracy. But don't worry, because Hillary Clinton is a fucking woman. She screws it up. Man, I gotta ask Dave Sim what he thinks of QAnon. This is gold. Just Gore Vidal leading a fucking totalitarian, feminist, homosexualist, communist, bisexualist conspiracy. I'm fucking dying. Okay, hang on, I just need a drink right now, okay? Alright, nothing quite like the big jug of apple cider that I'm keeping at the ground next to me to quench my thirst. And yes, I do keep a big jug of apple cider on the ground next to me at times like these. Because I like apple cider. It's very good. Okay. I have less frequently run afoul of homosexualist disapprobation than I have that of feminists, but on one notable occasion, when I had written that I was sickened by the thought of male homosexual acts. Notable occasion, when I had very famous and very talented gay graphic novelist. So far as I know, there is only one gay graphic novelist, so the first two guesses don't count. I don't really know who he's talking about. Asking me something along the lines of, how dare I find what he and his lover do together sickening? This is what I mean by the anecdotal prejudices of the feminist homosexualist axis, their frame of reference narrowed to the limits of their own idiosyncratic and tiny societal reality. Now, I just want to say, maybe, just maybe, you got a gay guy who works in comics, who is angry at another guy in the same industry. I mean, yes? Like, seriously, this guy doesn't know exactly what this allegedly only one gay guy thinks of other folks, but it's probably gotta hurt to see someone in your own industry diss you like that, I guess. I mean, maybe that guy does send letters to other people he likes. Maybe the two of them even had a personal relationship, for all I know, like a personal friendly one at some point. But I'm legitimately confused as to how, like, okay, so David Sim says something that he doesn't like imagining what gay people do. And then, some gay guy who works in the same industry, mind you, same industry. Now, different publishing house. David Sim was an independent publisher. But so, same industry, sends him a letter complaining about him. And David's just like, this is what I mean by the anecdotal prejudices. I mean, honestly, yeah, this is an anecdotal prejudice. It's literally one person objecting to something that you said. This one person works in the same industry as you. This one person is probably more familiar with his own industry than any other industry. I really don't know what he's going for. Like, I can't even laugh. I'm just confused. Like, honestly, it's pretty clear. Dave Sim just cannot take any complaints or criticism. Dude's a fucking Ayn Rand character. Okay. It was not a matter that I had consciously chosen at some point to sit down and persuade myself. I really must develop within myself a profound physical aversion to what famous, talented, gay graphic novelist and his boyfriend do in bed with each other. The aversion was there, is there, and it is, so far as I know, with most, if not all, heterosexual men having nothing whatsoever to do with famous, talented, gay graphic novelist or his boyfriend as human beings. Had I been inclined to respond, I could have very easily have said, how dare you presume to dictate to another person what is or is not an appropriate natural physical reaction within that person? Now, that's a lot of words. It seems to me that it is typical of the ists, communists, feminists, and homosexualists, that they genuinely see re-education as viable and not a violation, tolerant, and not totalitarian, that they have always failed to see. Okay, wait. Like, oh god, this is, like, seriously, it's just, I mean, I'm just gonna take a, okay, you know what, just gotta breathe deeply, just gonna take a big gulp of apple cider right here. Gallon bottle of apple cider. Signature Farms. Not from concentrate. 100% juice. Okay. Just gonna breathe in and out. Okay. So, gonna breathe in and out. Attempted societal change as secretly totalitarian. I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of getting some weird Jordan Peterson-y vibes, like the postmodern neo-Marxists control academia, that sort of thing. Only, I think this guy is much more eloquent and much more unhinged. Okay, so let's try to do this paragraph from the beginning, alright? It seems to me that it is typical of the ists, communists, feminists, and homosexualists that they genuinely see re-education as a viable and not a violation, tolerant, tolerant, no comma, violation, tolerant, and not totalitarian, and that they have always failed to see, whether it is in their communist or feminist homosexualist incarnation, that politically correct is an oxymoron. Hang on. Okay. It seems to me that it is typical of the ists, communists, feminists, and homosexualists that they genuinely see re-education as viable and not a violation, tolerant, and not totalitarian, and that they have always failed to see whether it is in their communist or feminist homosexualist incarnation that politically correct is an oxymoron. Yeah, I'm not sure what he's saying there. It is only the totalitarian who sees the goal of politics to be the determination of the one right way to think. And it is only the totalitarian who fails to recognize that politics is the vital give and take, parray and thrust, the ongoing give and take and parray and thrust, implied by the existence of contending viewpoints. Okay, so this is like just in it's kind of interesting. He's quick to accuse, I guess I'm just gonna say, gay rights activists and feminists of, being totalitarian, and they can't accept other people's viewpoints, and yet this guy just can't seem to accept that anyone else could have any other viewpoint and actually mean it in good faith. Ay vey. Fucking vey. But I do not envision a world... Oh, sorry. Wrong part. Hang on. Okay. As an example, I firmly believe that feminism is a misguided attempt to raise women above their place, which I firmly believe is secondary to that of men. I firmly believe that homosexuality, not homosexualists themselves, belongs at the margins of society and behind closed doors. I firmly believe that it must be tolerated, just as I firmly believe it should not be publicly celebrated. In your face celebrated, I mean. Okay, wait. Okay, so I'm a bit confused. So homosexuality, I guess that's just, gay sex acts, okay? Then there's homosexualist. So is he saying homosexualist is a gay rights activist, or is he saying that a homosexualist is just somebody who is gay regardless of whether or not they believe in or take part in gay rights activism? I'm legitimately very confused. I can't think of anyone else who uses homosexualist or bisexualist other than this dude. Okay? Now, he firmly believes that that women have a place that is secondary to men. For a guy who complains about feminists being, what's the word? Illogical. He just kind of asserts that women's place are below that of men, and that also feminism is misguided, but it also will just lead to kind of this one thought, one method totalitarianism. But at the same time, he doesn't seem to really like it when anyone disagrees with his idea that women don't belong beneath men, as seen by the fact that he's currently written 18 pages, I'm on page 18 right now, 18 pages worth of this nonsensically hilarious screed. I'm trying to make too much sense out of this. Okay. Oh, and then also, okay. Now I just need to look back at that gay part again, okay? So, I firmly believe that homosexuality, not homosexualists themselves, so I guess in this context, homosexualists refers to gay people, belong at the margins of society and behind closed doors. Okay, so the margins of society, that's usually not a good thing. Like, if something's at the margins of society, that could either mean, depending on the context, that, it's barely tolerated, or it's not even tolerated at all. Like, it's only tolerated when it's away from anyone who really matters or who cares about anything at all. But he also says, I firmly believe that it must be tolerated, just as I firmly believe it should not be publicly celebrated. In your face celebrated, I mean. Okay, so he thinks that it's okay to be gay so long as nobody else really knows that you're gay? Is that the implication? I guess. Maybe I'll ask him about that, but okay. But I do not envision a world, nor would I endorse a world where the feminist and homosexualist need to be re-educated or have their consciousness raised, or whatever feminist homosexualist euphemism you prefer for brainwashing, indoctrination, and sloganeering, so as to compel them to make their beliefs conform to my own, or my beliefs. Okay, so actually, I will say I am a bit confused, namely in the sense that he hasn't actually demonstrated how feminists or homosexualists are trying to forcibly indoctrinate people. Like, or also even how they're trying to create some sort of totalitarian society. Like, at least, with the OG communists he complains about, there were these types of re-education camps, where people with wrong ideologies were kind of just forced to take these repetitive courses, and you either had to honestly believe it or at least put on a good enough show or risk, facing physical injury or death. But is there anything remotely similar within feminist or gay rights or even just gay people in general? Like, he hasn't actually demonstrated it. Like I've been so focused on the hilarity of this, I realized that just the practicality of this makes no fucking sense. Okay. Nor do I become indigent when my beliefs are challenged. Honestly, he's going to contradict this next paragraph. I am more than willing to sharpen and clarify distinctions between my own views and the views of others, as I am doing at considerable length here, and I am always more than content to agree to disagree, but I confess that it does trouble me a great deal when political arrivistes, like the homosexualists and feminists, think that what engenders a natural visceral reaction in another human being should or even could be modified to suit their prejudices as to what reaction in their view should be. I like to avoid Nazi analogies. Totalitarian seems preferable to me as a less pejorative term. But when someone appears to imply that my reactions, my visceral reactions, my own thoughts, my own interior repercussive awareness needs to be managed or modified or obliterated, I do confess here the heavy tread of the jackboot in the back stairwell of my psyche. Okay, you know what? Let's just go back for a second, okay? Go back to the last page. Okay. So he says that he wants, for some reason, I really don't know why he decided to say this, decided to publish in his comic that he, as Dave Sim, finds the idea of gay acts to be just offensive. Okay? Then some gay graphic novelist basically said, how dare you, fuck you. And Dave Sim is basically saying, let's see. It's like, how dare I find what he and his lover do together sickening. So, I don't have the actual letter. I don't know if Dave Sim saved it. If he did and he's listening, please show me these letters. I'd like to see them. But basically, it's basically like this, okay? So Dave Sim is like, yeah, gay sex disgusts me. And then these gay guys like, hey, you, yeah, fuck you. And then Dave Sim is like, oh my god, this is literally how Nazi Germany got started. How dare you say that my feelings are wrong? And it's just like, what the fuck do you fucking expect? Do you expect to just say something and nobody reacts? I mean, are you really that offended that somebody reacted? I mean, honestly, that's freedom of speech, buddy. You have the right to say offensive shit, and people have the right to say, shut the fuck up. Nobody wants to hear your bullshit drivel. But no, this guy just say something, and some people don't want to hear his bullshit drivel. And he compares it to being just this ultimate victim of the Nazis. He's like, this is just like how Nazi Germany got started, just like how the Nazis would force people into re-education camps, the communists forced people into re-education camps, the gays and the women are forcing people into re-education camps. Well, I guess he was right about that one. I did have to salute my female comrade, Hillary Clinton, and because I wasn't smiling enough, I did get my rations reduced, and I got beat in the gut a couple of times, but that's just a coincidence. Okay. Where I most particularly take issue with the feminist homosexualist axis is with what I see as their monomaniacal haste to blur all distinctions between tolerance and celebration of alternative lifestyles. While feminists, in my experience, tend to view themselves as being very much unshockable, been there, done that, veterans of jaded sexual world weariness, I beg to differ. When placed alongside the multiplicity of hues which make up the full spectrum of sexual quote-unquote orientations, the rainbow of your average feminists' sexual experiences will, I can practically guarantee, prove positively monochromatic by contrast. As a civilized person, I am more than willing to tolerate the algolagnist. Hang on. Willing to tolerate the back on Merriam-Webster, algolagnist.
Algolagnist.
All right. Medical definition of algolagnist. See algolagniac.
Algolagniac.
Algolagniac. One who practices algolagnia. Thank you. Okay. Algolagnia.
Algolagnia.
A perversion. Okay, a perversion such as sadism or masochism characterized by pleasure and especially sexual gratification in inflicting or suffering pain.
Algolagnia. Algolagniac.
Huh, algolagnia. Well, if any fanfiction writers are listening, you've got a new word to use. Congratulations. Okay. As a civilized person, I am more than willing to tolerate the algolagnist in his or her proper place at the margins of society behind closed doors. An algolagnist pride parade is another thing entirely. You know, I'll be completely honest, I'm not sure that, entire civilizations or religions have basically had, algolagnia fears, continually accusing everyone of being algolagnists and, maybe killing them, burning them, beating them for just trying to live their lives. But, maybe it's happened at some point in history. History is a very long time. Okay. I am not sure how widespread irromation and self-irromation are. Another word, irromation. Hang on. Fellatio. Okay, thank you, Merriam-Webster. So wait. I am not sure how widespread irromation and self-irromation are, but I am sure that its devotees are very fond of it. However, self-irromation. Honestly, this entire tangent series is self-irromation, if you know what I mean. But I am sure that its devotees are very fond of it. Now that I think about it, this dude has basically admitted that he's never really gotten his dick sucked before in his life. So I'm just saying, for a guy who, who accuses feminists of having, monochromatic by contrast sexual lives and sexual experiences, this dude's basically just admitted to never or at least rarely getting his dick sucked. Okay. Okay. I am not sure how widespread irromation and self-irromation are, but I am sure that its devotees are very fond of it. However, my tolerance of their preference does not extend to public demonstrations of it in the food court of my local shopping mall, and no, I do not consider my intransigence on the subject to originate from either bigotry or intolerance. I mean, like, okay, wait, so the thing is that, fellatio, that's literally a sex act, but, does this guy just imagine, seeing two guys just, holding hands or kissing or hugging or something like that, not engaging in that hardcore sex, that shit that, what was his name, Rick Santorum thinks about, or whoever it was, that guy who's like, oh, you think about it as much as I do. But it's just like, just the implication here is that this guy, would see just two gay guys kissing or holding hands, and he'll immediately be like, if someone was sucking my dick right now, they'd get in trouble. But these two guys, they can hold hands in public. Fucking gutterball this guy is. Okay. Purely on an aesthetic level and with a wincing eye on the rapidly aging baby boom population, I think the place for gentrophilia is very much out of sight and very much out of mind. Yeah, gentrophilia, that's basically when you like old people. Scopophilia? Hang on. Okay, from Merriam-Webster's, scopophilia is a desire to look at sexually stimulating scenes, especially as a substitute for actual sexual participation.
Scopophilia.
Huh. So it's someone who just jacks off to porn instead of engaging in sex, I guess? That's another fan fiction word for all you aspiring fan fiction authors. Scopophilia is, I rather suppose, more universal than not, both in its legal and illegal forms. To the extent that, in the former instance, it has a nearly insatiable need for volunteers on both sides of the equation. Oh wait, I guess now that I'm thinking about it, scopophilia is more when you enjoy watching other people have sex. That probably makes more sense. Okay. It has a nearly insatiable need for volunteers on both sides of the equation. I do not think that, in a civilized world, handing out application forms on street corners or soliciting by telephone would be any great improvement on its present place in society. Okay. If my argument here seems insufficient, then let me quickly and discreetly as possible, if discretion is even possible under the circumstances, raise the specter of pre-mortem consent to have necrophilia, undoubtedly the vilest imaginable form of quote-unquote estate planning, a genuine test of libertarian absolutism. Okay. That is, there's a lot of specters he could have raised, and that certainly is one of them. Like, has anyone ever, there's a gazillion people to have ever lived. I'm sure at least two people, it has to be at least two people, have agreed to do something like that at some point, but like, I have to wonder, like, is this something he purely just thought of? Like, wow. That is... Okay. And just one of the many malignant vistas which open before the eyes of the strategically minded when the tactically limited begin to advocate and to practice the public celebration rather than the tolerance of alternative lifestyles and cultural diversity. Like, is this just like that slippery slope argument? Is like, if the gays kiss, then pretty soon we're going to be allowed to, suck dick in public. And then we're going to be, handing out flyers to try to recruit people to watch sex shows. And actually, now that I think about it, if you just went to a seedy neighborhood, you could probably find some sex shop, just handing out flyers or hiring porn stars or people for live sex shows. I mean, I guess if you just look hard enough, you could probably find these seedy communities. But then, just to fucking top it off, the vilest imaginable form of estate planning, the specter of pre-mortem consent relative to necrophilia. Honestly, is that? I'll give him credit. At least he ends the slippery slope somewhere. It's like most people just have a slippery slope that goes to yonder and beyond, but no, he's like, slippery slope, and BAM! Yeah, it ends at pre-mortem necrophilia. Okay. The very adjective, alternative, and the very noun, diversity, are both dangerously open-ended, pregnant with hidden significance, and subject to very broad and disastrous future extrapolations that the tactically limited feminist homosexualist axis chooses persistently to ignore. A case presently before the Supreme Court of Canada seems relevant, concerned as it is whether or not possession of child pornography is a crime, doubtless which much taxpayer money will be expended as the justices wrestle their way through the to the conclusion, while the possession of photographs or filmic records, 8mm videotape, of actual children in states of undress, acting or posing in sexual situations with each other or acting or posing in sexual of the commission of a crime, corruption of the morals of a minor, and that consequently said photographs and filmic records are disqualified as private property. The same cannot be said of drawings or of stories about entirely fictitious children with other fictitious children and or fictitious adults. Repulsive, to be sure, no question. I think that a close examination of the laws governing the civilized world in our present day will show that any attempt to ban any kind of creative work ultimately and absolutely fails, because our civilized laws dating back to 1066 require that there be a demonstrable danger of physical harm before the law can take my action. The law can take... No, it does say the law can take my action. Probably meant to say any. No. Certainly, the near universal repulsion that heterosexual men experience in considering the existence of male homosexual pornography has done little to stem the tide of public displays and celebrations of work that would have been universally deemed, even a mere 50 years ago, as depraved. Many of Robert Mapplethorpe's more explicit photographs, as an example. Yes, the regularly celebrated Robert Mapplethorpe. Like, I get it, Robert Mapplethorpe is an artist. He probably does weird sex shit, but like, when was the last time you saw a kinky Robert Mapplethorpe being paraded around in public? I mostly just know his name because Mapplethorpe is funny sounding. Feminists relish heterosexual male discomfiture in these situations. They simply revel in it. But I suspect their empathetic emotions are going to take an awful beating when efforts to suppress imagination-based child pornography ultimately fail on the same basis which permits the dissemination and possession of homosexual pornography. So this dude's literally comparing the existence of gay porn to child porn? Wait. Okay, so... hang on. I suspect their empathetic emotions are going to take an awful beating when efforts to suppress imagination-based child pornography ultimately fail on the same basis which permits the dissemination and possession of homosexual pornography. The feminist-led Supreme Court handed down its ruling in January of this year while I was doing corrections on Tangent. If anyone is interested in reading my opinion on that ruling, write in. I think the justices made several fundamental errors that will come back to bite them on their collective feminist asses. Okay, so is he saying that feminists will be going after imaginary child porn? And that, is he saying, so he seems to be implying that feminists will be going after, like, completely fictional depictions of fictional CP, and that it'll be amusing to watch them flounder as the same arguments, or the same legal arguments that they use to justify gay porn will be used to justify completely fictitious child porn. I'm gonna take a break. Hello everybody, I'm back. Truth be told, y'all probably can't see this just because of the way this will end up being edited, but it is now the next day. I just needed some time to dwell on the nonsense that I read and also get some other stuff done. And I realized that even though I've read these tangents before, this is the first time I'm actually reading them and really paying attention to what they say. Because the other times I've read them, I've just been laughing my fucking ass off, like with tears in my eyes, just because of the sheer absurdity of this. And now that I think about this, that despite a lot of the very good English within these essays, I realize that they really don't make much sense. Like, this dude is literally comparing his own thoughts about what gay people do in their bedrooms to public acts of sex, and then eventually the slippery slope ends at a person, like, on their deathbed consenting to have their corpse fucked by someone else after they die. And it's just like, this is one of those dudes who will basically, like, just see a gay couple holding hands or something, then just, imagine them having the rawest, nastiest, just most disgusting sex you can imagine, and then probably get mad at them for putting his mind there. It's like that artist, was that the comic guy with Stone Toss, yeah. I like to call Stone Toss gutter ball. I know I used the term gutter ball last session, but I originally used it to describe that Stone Toss guy, because let me tell you, gutter ball is just obsessed with other people's sex lives. Looking at his comics. Okay. Continuing. The point missed by the feminists, I think, is that the slope between tolerance and celebration is a slippery one indeed. If there exists a clearly demarcated line which can be legally drawn between allowing public celebrations of those sexual orientations of which feminists approve and disallowing celebrations of those sexual orientations of which feminists disapprove, I would certainly be eager to read it in an ironclad and unassailable legalese. If I had to guess, it probably has something to do with consent. Like, consent and the ability to withdraw said consent. Like, the average feminist would not approve of pedophilia on the grounds that a child cannot consent. They would probably approve of, gay sex because, two gay people or two or more gay people, they can consent and also can withdraw that consent at any time. And in the downright disgusting case of the necrophilia that he mentioned earlier, a corpse cannot withdraw consent at any time because that corpse is dead. But that's not legalese, so I guess it's not good enough. But I am reasonably certain that that line does not exist and can't possibly be made to exist despite the frantic efforts that feminists will, I am sure, bring much too little, much too late to the proceedings when the time does come. Allowing gay pride parades is the thin edge of the wedge, and I think myself safe in saying that creeping incrementalism is the invisible result of the, however well-intentioned, blundering, short-sighted, quote, logic of next-step tacticians and tacticianettes. This danger posed by creeping incrementalism is, so far as I can see, the rationale behind the sensible and, dare I say, masculine solution of don't ask, don't tell. So if it's sensible, it's masculine, okay? But at the same time, is it also sensible to take any form of criticism as comparable to the fucking Nazis in the back of your mind or something? Okay. The Clinton administration's policy on gays in the U.S. military, much belittled, to no surprise, by the feminist homosexualist axis. It's 2021, close to 2022. Gays have been in the military for a while, serving in the open, and I don't think they've made the U.S. military much weaker. Like, LGBT folks, last I checked, they make up about 5 or so percent of the U.S. population. That's it. As it becomes clear that there are any number of behaviors going on behind closed doors that any number of people find or would find personally abhorrent, it seems only sensible to restore privacy and confidentiality to sexual matters, which, of course, matters of sexuality had until feminists and the voodoo profession, let it all hang out, got hold of it. Although virtually all feminists are notoriously curious about other people's private lives, notoriously inclined to discuss private matters with others, and notoriously inclined to support this singularly female vice into the workplace, into which the unfairer sex have arrived en masse in the last 30 years, gossip-mongering, in my view, serves no good purpose. I am not sure how one would argue against the proposition that society will proceed quite nicely and with a minimum amount of friction and abrasion if we all remain wholly and completely unaware of the exact percentages of the population who participate in sexual activity A or sexual activity B, and which of our friends and acquaintances do likewise. Honestly, Dave, you're the one who's obsessed with other people's sex lives. I mean, you're the one who said, presumably unprompted just based on what you wrote earlier, that you're disgusted by what gay people do in the bedroom. Is well, what prompted you to even say that in the first place? Unless you're just thinking about other people's sex lives. Okay. Put another way, if we were to discover irrefutable evidence that a hitherto undetected majority of the population shares in the deviant sexual behavior Ernest Hemingway confessed to enjoying with his pet cat, Boise... Wait. Wait. What the hell? I'm not even gonna look into that one. I'm not looking at. I'm sorry. I don't know much about Ernest Hemingway other than he was like some famous author dude. But I fail to see any material benefit for society in having those individuals collectively make themselves known to us. We're here. We're bestialists, and we're not going away. Or what good might result from a bestialist's pride parade. I don't believe I or anyone else needs to have our bestiality consciousness raised, and I don't believe that either a government or privately funded study on bestiality is worthwhile in any way. Okay, so now he's literally comparing, just gay people existing to fucking animals? I mean, like, if that's what he said, like he says he is willing to tolerate homosexuality, but the fact that he's just comparing it to fucking animals implies that he really doesn't. Or maybe he only tolerates homosexuality if people who are gay act in a way that he approves of or something like that. It's pretty condescending. In our society, whether we are consciously aware of it or not, if we have a name for it, then we tolerate it, whatever it is, at the margins of society and behind closed doors. We have names for a lot of things that are generally not tolerated in society. Last I checked, we don't generally tolerate bestiality or pedophilia or necrophilia, but we got names for them. It seems to me that the next logical step for everyone is to agree not to talk about their own little precious it, unless they are reasonably certain that they are in the company of like-minded devotees. While I was finishing Tangent 2, Comics Journal 228 arrived in the mail with a review by a Miss or Mrs. Ruthie Penmark entitled Dory Seta, Champagne Pissing Dog Fucker or First Great Woman Artist, which begins, I do not fuck my dog. No further questions, Your Honor. What the hell is... What the hell did I jump over to? Okay. That's literally on this page right now. Although I firmly believe, for the reasons stated, that the place for homosexuality, again, homosexuality, not those who practice it, is at the margins of society and behind closed doors, I do not believe that homosexuality is necessarily a sin. According to Luke's Gospel, chapter 17:21, when Jesus was attacked by Pharisees, when the kingdom of God should come, Jesus is quoted as saying, I tell you, in that night there shall be two men in one bed. The one shall be taken and the other shall be left. 17:34. Two women shall be grinding together. The one shall be taken and the other left. 17:35. I think it stretches credulity to the breaking point to suggest that there might be some other reason for two men to be in a bed. Women, sure. Just a sleepover. Women are like that. Oh, God. Oh, God. But men, I don't think so. Juxtaposed with the two women grinding together. Whichever of the disciples it was, they were all presumably nice Orthodox Jewish boys who recounted Jesus' reply to Luke. I would doubt that he or they knew exactly what the reply meant, but I assume that Luke, a Greek physician, knew exactly what the reply meant. These two verses followed in the Authorized Version of the Bible by 1736. Two men shall be in the field, the one shall be taken and the other left, which I suspect was added by a later hand whose owner also knew exactly what the reply meant and thought that what the reply meant ought to be changed. The marginal note in my King James 1611 facsimile rather dryly remarks, this 36th verse is wanting in the most of Greek copies. No doubt, I remember thinking to myself, aside from my ambivalence about the synoptic Jesus, which I have voiced elsewhere, it seems to me an open question whose answer, like the answers to so many questions, is known only to God, as to what those two verses mean, specifically whether they refer to a specific male homosexual and specific lesbian who will be saved on the last day, too literal an interpretation in my view, whether half of all male homosexuals and half of all lesbians will be saved on the last day, less literal, but perhaps still too literal an interpretation, or if it means, in the more general sense, that according to the Jesus of Luke's gospel, homosexuality per se doesn't automatically disqualify a soul from being saved, and that homosexuality exists somewhere on the sin spectrum between murder and, let's say, bad hygiene, at a position closer to the latter than the former. Or perhaps, at the very least, closer to bad hygiene than murder, than the entrenched custodians of the law of Moses, the scribes, and the Pharisees would have held in the first century of the Common Era. And that is the end of Tangent 2. You know, this was real dreck, and yet it had so many really interesting words, so many that I actually had to look up. I was anticipating having to look them up. I didn't prepare for it. I really should have done that. But at the same time, I really want these recordings to just capture the emotional state that I was in reading these, that these texts have, and just the fact that this guy, just cannot seem to contemplate that he is just spewing absolute drivel that regularly contradicts itself. Especially in the first tangent when he talks about how, merely talking to women was enough research for him, and then he'll also attack feminists for being too anecdotal about how he will, express rationality, and he doesn't want to force anyone to change their minds. However, the fact that, someone got offended at his presumably unprompted statements is enough to, make him imagine as if he's being persecuted by the literal fucking Nazis. It's really no wonder why his wife fucking left him. Thank you for listening. Please donate to my Ko-fi. I'm still getting new to this thing. I'll probably use the money to buy a pizza or something. Hello, this is Fiveum, saying thank you for listening, and I sincerely hope that you enjoyed it. If you can, please like and share it around, and if you're feeling especially generous, please subscribe. I need at least 100 subscribers to change my YouTube channel's URL, and my default is long and ugly, and I really don't like it. It would be extremely helpful for me if you subscribed. But you don't have to. I'm not your boss. I'm just Fiveum. And right now, I'm signing off.